welcome today's conference on indigenous women's role as activists within and without their communities. I would like to first of all thank the Society for Pregnant Peoples for organizing this conference and hosting this conference. Unfortunately, they couldn't come here today, but I'm sure that they are following us through our live streaming, and for those who want to follow us, please go to the UNPO Facebook page. And I would like to thank also our fantastic speakers that are here, and they are our members, and thank you for accepting to participate in this conference. For those who are not familiar with the UNPO, it is an international non-violent democratic membership organization that has been founded in 1991 at The Hague. And since then, we tried to provide with our members, now more than 40, with a platform to raise the issue and awareness on their cases. And we are talking about minorities, indigenous people, and unrepresented people from all over the world. Today, we are delighted to welcome representatives from our members from Ambazonia, Uyghur people, Kabylia, and West Balochistan. We worked with them in the past. This is not the first contribution that we are giving, and I can tell you that they are really, really powerful in their statements. But today, we are here to give them a space to voice the struggle faced by the women in their communities and the work that they are doing to overcome them. Indigenous and minorities women face unique struggles, and that's very, very true. Too often, they are reduced to victims of physical and sexual violence that aims to terrify them and their families into submission. Too often, they are excluded from important conversation, and their needs are considered secondary to the priorities of a man or non-indigenous or minority women. They are barred from full, equal involvement in economic, political, and cultural spheres, sometimes even from their own people. That can happen. They are relegated to a symbolic role, passive, requires saving. But unrepresented women are more than nice-faced imposters. They are human rights defenders, educators, protectors, and leaders. They work tirelessly to promote their cause, and I have no doubts that today our friends here will show example of women in their communities' involvement in advocacy, protest, peace building, and other forms of activism, both most past and present. The presence of indigenous people, women, in this circle is not recent. They have always been there, though their work has often been confined to the shadow. In the last couple of years, intersectionality, which is the reason why we are here, has become a buzzword as more and more people come to realize that the advancement of women's rights means advancement for all women, not just those closest to center of power. This has led to increased visibility of indigenous and minorities women's struggle worldwide, and with the visibility have come opportunities for them to advocate for themselves and their work on local, national, and international level. And that's why we wanted to call it Unrepresented Women's Rights, Inclusivity, and Intersectionality. This context makes all more important to promote the inclusion of women, and in particularly, or those who are unrepresented at all levels. The gender imbalance in human rights organizations and institutions is coming under fire, and rightly so. Without ensuring a seat and a table for indigenous women, minority women movement will be not able to ensure a sustainable solution to the problems they work to solve. Human rights are not a menu that we can choose from. To respect human rights, it is to respect both women and indigenous and minority rights. We cannot choose what is most convenient to us. And to ensure that, we need to uplift indigenous and minority women worldwide so that together we can find the path that allows the respect of all. And I hope you will find the discussion today interesting and important as we do. And I will now step back to leave the floor to our participants and to let them speak from themselves. So I will immediately leave the floor to the representative of West Balochistan, Monireh Shirani. So Monireh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucia. It's an honor to be part of this panel with these dedicated women. It's an honor to be able to talk about the situation of Baloch people in Iran. Iran is a country comprised of 82 million people, a multi-ethnic country, diverse in languages, diverse in culture, history, religion, and these ethnic groups are the Ahwazi Arabs, the Azerbaijan Turks, Fars, Baloch, Kurd, Lor, and Turkmen. But in reality, the Iranian government only recognizes one identity, one language, and one religion. And that's the Fars identity, the Shia religion, and the history of the Persians. Leaving all other groups lack of an ethnic identity. This is a way for them to be discriminated in any power realm in Iran. Although the Iranian constitution recognizes the rights of ethnic groups within their own constitution, reality shows otherwise. There are strong, implemented institutional discrimination mechanism within Iran, so that all the other ethnic groups are discriminated against on all levels of life. I will talk about the overall situation of the Baloch, and then go into a little bit further about the situation of the Baloch women in Iran. So giving you a little bit of background about Balochistan, it is today divided between Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. It is one of the most strategic areas in the Middle East and the Southeast Asia. It has a long coastline with the Arabic Sea and the Persian Gulf, and being divided between Iran and Pakistan in very important countries. And also it's the homeland of the Baloch with a distinct culture and national identity. When I said that Iran has a population of 82 million people, the Baloch comprise 2% of that population. But there are several layers of discrimination that they face. So for example, when a child is born in Balochistan and the father and the mother wants to register this child, they're not entitled to choose whichever name they want to. It cannot be a Baloch name, it's prohibited. So today we have approximately 100,000 undocumented Baloch people in Iran. About 40,000 of these are children. And without documentation in Iran, in any other country, you are denied access to primary rights such as education, healthcare, and other human rights that you should be entitled to. Also, as I said before, it's a resource-rich region, but 70% of the population live below poverty line. They don't have access to clean water or sanitation. Due to environmental challenges, the main Sweetwater Lake has dried out, so many people have to travel long distances to be able to provide drinking water for themselves. And this is also mostly a task that young women and girls take. We have an example from last month where four people, 3 girls and 1 woman, went to fetch water. And one of them, the youngest one, 8 years old, she fell in. Her sisters, age 11 and 14, tried to save her, but unfortunately all 4 died. We have another case of last week where women are going and washing their dishes, and a small boy of 7 years old falls in and dies. This is not because we do not have water in Balochistan. This is because the state is manipulating the water. It has created large dams for the non-Baloch population. Residential areas with Baloch do not have access to these pipelines. So while the state is profiting from the water and redistributing it in Iran, Baloch people are dying as they're trying to fetch drinking water for themselves. Another area where the Baloch are discriminated against is linguistic and cultural rights. So when children in Iran start school, they start to learn another language if they're not Persians. No Baloch, Ahwaz, Kurd, Turkmen, Azeris, they're not allowed to be educated in their mother tongue. So you have basically a child who starts school within a foreign language. And then there's a mechanism called Guzinesh, which basically a selection procedure that the state has implemented to test you. They will test your faith. They will test your identity. So for any state university or state job, all non-Persians are not giving the jobs. They are bringing in non-Baloch to the area, giving them better opportunities, even though they're less qualified for them. And I have a report from the education minister from 2010 who basically is saying that 70% of the students starting school do not have Farsi as their mother tongue. This puts children in an extremely disadvantaged positions. And in early 2008, head of the board on education policy said that the aim of the elementary school is to indoctrinate children in the Farsi language and culture, and the Iranian and Islamic identity. It is not only poverty that is a factor of the situation being vulnerable for Baloch women in Iran. It's also the sense of insecurity and lack of state protection. Being 2% of the population in Iran, they are estimated to represent about 20% of executions. Iran still uses executions in their legal system. And this leaves women and children who live in a patriarchal society who do not recognize them in an extremely vulnerable situation. We all have reports of entire male populations in villages who have been executed. The state sees the Baloch as an enemy of itself. So whenever there's an incident in Balochistan, there's a fighting between rebels and the Revolutionary Guards last month, which resulted in Iran executing 3 members who were in prison during that period and who was waiting trial for a whole nother offense. But just to show and install fear in the society, they executed them. The families are not entitled to the bodies. The families are not entitled to a proper ceremony. The families don't even know where these people have been buried. So it's quite a bleak situation for us ethnic minorities in Iran. But the Baloch women in Iran are the pillars of the Baloch society. Even though she's recognized as a second-class citizen because she is a woman, due to constitutional legal factors, she does always belong to someone else, either her father or her husband. But when you lose your father and your husband, then you're all by yourself. And per definition, due to their ethnicities, they are even put on a step less. They become third-class citizens. But as I said before, the Baloch women are the pillars of the Baloch society. Historically, Baloch women and men have worked side by side. Our epic ballads talk about strong women who are determined to serve their nation. As proud Baloch, she doesn't have to choose between her individual identity or her ethnic identity. And even though there's been a ban on the Baloch language for over 40 years, we still speak Balochi. We still carry on our language. And in the sense of being a mother in Balochistan, they have pushed forward the history of the Baloch, giving children a history, an identity, a purpose, a context in a society which doesn't recognize them. And families in Balochistan put equal amount of effort to put both their girls and boys to school. We have a statistically very high figure of young Baloch women finishing university, taking part of society, even trying. And this is a way to fight against these mechanisms which systematically excludes you from society. Working together, creating a context in your own sense, with your own words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Monireh. It has been very comprehensive, and I know that you have to leave us a bit in advance, but it's for a good reason, for good meetings that she's going to have, because as we said, we are here because they are women, but they are activists. So I would like to leave the floor right now to Miss Soraya Sough. I'm sorry if I'm not going to... Good, perfect. Who is the Deputy Minister of International Relations of Provisional Government of Kabylia.
Yeah, correct.
And can you tell us more about this new member of the UNPO?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so
Pleasure.
much.
Thank you, Lucia. So, good afternoon, everybody. I will talk about us as women, Kabylian women. In my language, the name is Ghayrat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your welcoming in the whole of United Nations. We, the Kabyl women, are thankful for this honor. Our presence among you today marks a historic turning point in our long struggle for equality and recognition of our rights as people in international scene. For those who don't know us yet, we Kabyl people, as one of the indigenous peoples of North Africa, also known as Berbers or Amazigh. Our land, Kabylia, was annexed by force, formed part of French Algeria. We remain subjected to this rule of Algeria even after it fought and obtained independence from France in 1962. The Kabyl people are among the oldest peoples on earth. We have seen greater civilizations which have come and gone. We have always been there. We are the soul, the memory, and the consciousness of this humanity which is killing us slowly. Allow me, honor, to inform you about the current situation of the Kabyl women. In the 21st century, we are still obliged to fetch water every day to the fountains of neighboring villages in jerrycans of 20 or 30 liters, carry it back on our backs or heads for several kilometers, most often barefoot on narrow, rocky, and dangerous paths through the mountains. Although living a country which provides more or less 46% of Europe energy needs and will soon be supplying Asian as well, the Kabyl woman, we have no gas city at home. She, as her family, dies of cold in the winter because quite simply we don't have gas cylinders available for heating or cooking. In some areas, we continue to fetch wood from the forest to warm his house and family, 50 years after the independence of Algeria from France. The Kabyl woman is discriminated every day of her life, and most often because she is a free woman, because she is not wearing an Islamic veil and speaking French. However, the Kabyl woman resists as well she can, suffering as she does from a cruel lack of means in the face of Islamization, Salafization, and other stratagems of Algerian regime with its different policies of Arabization, assimilation, and its repeated attempts to substitute our ancestral identity with clothes and customs imported from somewhere. At home in Kabylia, the Algerian authorities are synonymous with repression and injustice. Unfortunately, we have no defense mechanism or protocol to protect the woman or the child against violence from different sources. nor do we have figures or statistics about the suffering of our people, other than rare newspaper story written. The only information that I can share with you right now is just talking about the rate of suicide in our political capital, which is Tizi Ouzou, which become the suicide capital of whole Algeria. So we have numbers, only in 2017, the number of people committed suicide was 302, and of whom 106 was women. The situation in many aspects in Kabylia is difficult, complex, and even the children commit suicide. At home, when someone is hospitalized, we have to go to pharmacies or to the black market to get drugs to treat our patients, who often end up succumbing and dying for lack of resources, or simply we don't have practical roads or a simple equipped ambulances. The Kabyle women, despite of our efforts, courage, and studies, and our desire to be integrated in a modern world, there is no plan for and there is law to protect our rights, as everything about our lives is governed by Sharia laws. No Kabyle woman sits in any municipality. No Kabyle woman can be a mayor or even a governor if she claims her Kabyle identity. We don't have political representation in any government institution of the Algerian state. The Algerian regime does everything to make us invisible. At best, Kabyle women are characterized in folkloric fairy tales as good at making carpets and cakes. Or perhaps we should be thankful, as this allows us to earn some money to our family. The Kabyle woman is simply dissolved in a totalitarian and hostile identity that is not and will never be hers. I take this opportunity to call on you no longer to be silent and no longer to be indifferent to the repeated and continuous violations of the most fundamental rights of my people. We, the Kabyle people, are peacefully resisting of one of the last dictatorships in North Africa. Despite the darkness that we live, the women in Kabylia never pity our fate. The Kabyle woman is determined not to be a victim, and we advance on path to liberation, to our liberation and emancipation, with small projects that most of the time start in the family itself, but also in, thanks to our government in the exile in Paris and the diaspora, especially in France, but also around the world. To end my speech, I would like to recall and call the names and surnames of some people, of some Kabyle women murdered by Islamist terrorists, the famous GIA, ancestor of Daesh today, and the victims of Algerian power during the Black Spring in 2001. Kater Bengana, Nabila Jahnin, Amel Zenoun Zouani, Zoubida Berkan, Hourian Rashida Hamadi, Naima Iloul, Rashida Sahab, Aïtou Sliman Nadia, Aribia Yamina, Nejma Fadila, and I'm finishing Zikar Fatiha. The crime against these women and their families are still unresolved and criminals go unpunished. I call you again all to change the life of Kabyle women and ensure that our children have a better life in a free Kabylia. The Kabyle women, even oppressed and oppressed, will never be defeated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Soraya, for providing us with this very comprehensive explanation of what's happening in your community, in your country, which is very, very worrying.
Yeah.
And on behalf of the UNPO, I can tell you that we are going to be very happy to support you as an activist, as a woman, and your people. And going through like a topic which is like the terrorism you were mentioning, we have here among our speakers even a population, a speaker that is suffering because they have been said that they are terrorists and they're having many, many problems every time. But it is impossible to say that all the people that belong to a community are terrorists, of course, but this is one of the discrimination that our people usually suffer of. And so we have here Shahrezad Ghayrat, right? who works for the World Uyghur Congress as a project assistant, and she just joined the organization, but she's already doing lots of work. So if you go to their website, you will see surely, even on the Facebook page, many of the videos that she's recording, usually even using this tool, which is very important, social media. So Shahrezad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucia. Hello, everyone. We are attending this side event today because not only do we want to hear the voice of unrepresented women and their stories, but we also want to foster women's participation and influence on social movements. I appreciate the UNPO and SDP for providing me with this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Uyghurs, for the chance to highlight both the achievements and the challenges in the process of integrating and empowering women in political processes.
These microphones are on.
7 years ago, I would have never imagined that one day I will be sitting amongst powerful women from all walks of life to share my story. Because I never thought that I would be a Uyghur activist one day. My home country is no longer on the world map. The Chinese Communist Party invaded it in 1949 and named it Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The desperate plight of Uyghurs have been made worse since Chen Quanguo, the new party leader in the region, took office in 2016. It was during mid-2016 when I lost contact with my family. Around the same time, and especially at the start of 2017, many other Uyghurs in the diaspora also lost contact with their family, and it became apparent that there's something serious was going on in the Uyghur region. In early 2017, stories emerged that Uyghurs were being arbitrarily detained in political indoctrination camps, where they are being forced to denounce their religion, Uyghur identity, and to pledge their loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party. If anyone disobeyed these rules, punishments such as deprivation of sleep, food, and solitary confinement awaited them. Due to China's forced assimilation policies, Uyghur women can't wear hijab, can't pray. They are not even allowed to wear a simple shirt that covers their hips, because all of these are viewed as Islamic extremism in the eyes of Chinese authorities. There are over 1 million Uyghurs being arbitrarily detained as we speak. This is why I started to work in Uyghur human rights advocacy. As an Uyghur activist, speaking out against China's oppression, our lives and our families are often put in real danger, as Chinese authorities have been trying to silence those who are outspoken with threats of detaining family members who are still living in the Uyghur region. I started doing Uyghur advocacy work with the fear of losing my family back home. But soon, that fear was resolved. I know that without the sacrifice, there is no change. I believe that every voice counts, and if I don't speak up about the horrific situation facing Uyghurs now, then everything that makes us unique as people, our culture, language, religion, and ethnic identity may soon disappear. My first public speaking experience was during NGO events in Australia, where the audience were local parliamentary members and other human rights activists. Not many people know about Uyghurs or the country I am from. But after the first public speaking experience, I was empowered by the audience reaction and how profound it is to speak on matters that you are passionate about. The more I spoke about the Uyghur issue, the more people starting to know about who are the Uyghurs and what are we going through. Moreover, I reached out to other Uyghur activists, women activists, as some of them have been doing the advocacy work for more than 30 years. I wanted to learn more about the work, and I wanted to develop myself in the field of Uyghur activism. I would like to talk about one Uyghur woman specifically. I look up to her, and she has been doing this advocacy work for the past 30 years. Roshan Abbas is a former student activist of the pro-democracy demonstration at Xinjiang University in 1985 and 1988. The demonstration was an early reaction to Chinese anti-Uyghur policies in the 1980s that openly discriminated against Uyghur students in particular, and one of the first large-scale public response to discriminatory policies against Uyghurs that many students felt. Ms. Abbas arrived in the United States in 1989 and has been ardent campaigner for the human rights of the Uyghur people, and has worked closely with the members of the US Congress since 1990s. Ms. Abbas was a co-founder of the first Uyghur Association in the United States and served as first vice president of the California-based Uyghur Overseas Students and Scholars Association in 1993. The charter, co-drafted by Ms. Abbas, later served as a blueprint and played an important role in the establishment of the Uyghur American Association. Ms. Abbas was subsequently elected as a vice president of the Uyghur American Association for 2 terms. And when Radio Free Asia opened their Uyghur service in 1998, Ms. Abbas was the first Uyghur reporter broadcasting daily to the Uyghur region. Her tireless efforts in Uyghur advocacy helped shape the political future of Uyghurs in the United States. In March this year, Ms. Abbas founded the One Voice, One Step movement, a women-led initiative taking action to mobilize and unite the Uyghur women in the diaspora community to work together to improve the situation for the Uyghur people through concrete actions. The organizers succeeded in mobilizing hundreds of Uyghur women, children, and men across the world in a true example of the power of collective actions, as demonstrations were held in 14 countries and 18 cities on the same day. The demonstrators drew considerable attention from the international media and highlighted the urgent situation in the Uyghur region to officials and citizens in the countries around the world. These female-led demonstrations brought together people of all genders, ages, political affiliations, and backgrounds to show that women's political participations results in tangible gains for human rights, including greater responsiveness to advocacy needs, increased cooperation across associations and organizations, and more sustainable peace. Through these female-led demonstrations, Uyghur women in the diaspora realized their participation is essential to push forward the Uyghur human rights advocacy. I myself participated in One Step, One Voice demonstrations held in Australia. And through this collective experience, I felt empowered. The experience was eye-opening, and I'll never forget how I felt when I was supported by so many people in one place. Participating in demonstration helped me become even more dedicated in Uyghur human rights advocacy work. Of course, there are many challenges. There are challenges every step of the way for women activists, such as balancing family, work, and advocacy for human rights. Therefore, most of the Uyghur women activists do advocacy work on the side. Now there's another struggle, which is that for decades, women's rights organizations and advocates have been severely underfunded. Although new actors are prioritizing gender issues or increasing efforts to mainstream gender into programs and policies, it should not be assumed that this has led to a new avenue of funding. Without specific ways to channel resources to women's rights organizations, funds, including those allocated to civil society groups for the purpose of gender equality and women's rights, don't reach the groups that have the most impact at all local, national, and global levels. I believe all development actors should be focusing more on supporting women's rights activists, organizations, and movements. Gender equality and women's empowerment is an essential component of human rights advocacy work. With all of this in mind, It will be more crucial than ever to support and build the capacity of women's groups in advocacy work. Understanding the most effective ways to channel resources to women's rights activists, their organizations and movements is one practical step towards achieving this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Shahrezad. As some of you already know, I'm working on the Uyghurs a lot too, and I would like to invite you to follow what's happening, the debate that we are having at the UN this month about the 1 million Uyghur that are in their education camps in China, and the US government is talking about it as well. So I hope that after this speech you still feel very empowered, as you said. I really appreciate it that you use this word very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Marjorie Awemu, right, who is the representative of the Ambazonia Governing Council, which is one of our new members. I'm very happy to see many of our members here today of your community joining us, so welcome, and all the other UNPO members and other people that are here. So I leave you the floor and tell us more about your experience and your community. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to meet you all, and I'm happy that I've been given this opportunity to represent the unrepresented women of Ambazonia, because it's very, very important to note that these women have been unrepresented for a long time. So the women of southern Cameroon, that is Ambazonia, which used to be a former British Trust territory, have faced several challenges, especially over the course of 55 years of annexation and recolonization by La République du Cameroon, even now as they fight to regain the independence of their nation. And also seek its recognition as a free and sovereign state by the international community. These challenges range from unrepresentation and exclusion in politics. Since 1961, only 3 women have been represented ministerially, and 3 women at the senatorial position, you can imagine, from 1961. And such representation is pitiful for a government that claims to be the people's government. However, the Ambazonian women have remained dutifully and civilly active in grassroots political parties, and they are often coordinating and running political party activities from the grassroots. They are leading campaigns, mobilizing and sensitizing constituents, and even rising to the level of acclaimed opposition political party leadership. Economically, the women of Ambazonia are eager to set up business enterprises and entrepreneurial ventures, but have not been allowed access to loans and other sources of funding which will enable them to realize their dreams. But this has not led them in as much to to back up, because these women have decided to support themselves by creating alternative microfinancing initiatives known as, we call it Jangis. And what is that? It is when a group of women come together and put in funds to help each other to finance their own activities. And culturally, the advancement of women has been hindered by traditional beliefs and practices that prevent them from attaining higher heights in formal education, politics, and economic advancement. Nevertheless, several grassroots women have invested great time, money, and sweat in sensitizing initiatives geared towards unveiling myths and exposing detrimental effects of outdated traditional beliefs and practices whose only objective is to subjugate and undermine women. Let me just give an example. From where I come from, it is like a tradition that when a girl is of age, the girl has to go to the street and hawk, and sell water, and sell mangoes, and sell whatsoever she has to sell. She is not allowed to go to school. But then, the women have come together and put up an initiative to educate the mothers, to educate parents, to know that education plays a great part in the education and the future of a girl child. So, for those who do not know, we have an ongoing struggle for the restoration and independence and recognition of Ambazonia as a free and a sovereign nation. And the women of Ambazonia have stoically borne the bloody brunt of the struggle. Example of violence and dehumanization, rape and murder perpetrated against women and girls by the military of La République du Cameroon is very, very rampant. Like a few months ago, an elderly woman was burnt alive in her house because she didn't have the strength to run away when the forces came. And a girl was raped in broad daylight for going to buy foodstuff. She was a breastfeeding mom, and she was raped by the forces that were supposed to protect them. So the women are really are in the forefront of the violence that is perpetrated in Ambazonia. And despite the deplorable and vulnerable state in which the women of Ambazonia find themselves, they have refused to give into their new order and reality of reprisal and death. Rather, the pain and agony they experience daily has emboldened them and strengthened them to resolve to be a vital part of the struggle for the liberation of their homeland. When the situation of Ambazonia deteriorated to a full-blown humanitarian crisis, with thousands fleeing to the neighboring country, which is Nigeria, and to the bushes, it was the women of Ambazonia who championed the cause of catering for their needs, for the needs of refugees and the internally displaced people. These women from abroad and home, they came together and put out funds to buy equipment to help these people to better their conditions. The immediate concern of women is indeed to alleviate the real-time suffering of their people. However, they also seek to raise greater international awareness of the humanitarian crisis and the human rights abuses and outright genocide in Ambazonia. As I am talking to you every day, like 20 boys are being killed. I don't even have the right figures, but there is a genocide happening in my country, and mothers have been the ones burying their kids because all the men have either been killed or they have run away from the villages. And the women have to dig graves to bury their own children. That is something that I cannot even fathom, but that is the reality of the Ambazonian woman. Above all, the women of Ambazonia seek to raise a greater awareness and to say that they are going to hold the free world to its promise that never again it shall stand by idly and look away in the face of genocide. We have decided to be actors of change and not victims. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marjorie. I do believe that we have to be very proud of all our speakers today. And with your regards, I want to thank you for put so much energies in your speech and being vocal in explaining what's happening in Ambazonia. I would like to leave the floor for the question and answers if we have it, but we have only a few minutes, so if you want, just let me know. Okay, so since we are already running out of time, I can tell you that I would like to close this conference by thanking all the speakers, all the people that joined us today. Unfortunately, even Soraya had to leave to catch up her flight. We heard today about many different situations, and of course they have something in common on being women and in finding, trying to find solutions all together to help themselves and to become more powerful and to overcome their problems, of course. Everybody is suffering because even of course, being invisible sometimes. The lack of loan, the assimilation sometimes, and the sense of insecurity. But I do see lots of security today here in being so vocal and trying to help their community as much as possible. So on behalf of the UNPO and also of the Society for Pregnant People, because I do believe that they are proud of you as well, I would like to thank you for keeping eye on these matters and for being so good in your work. And I hope you will be successful in your job in this institution, in this building, and even in the other institutions all over the world, like the European institutions and the other governments. So I would like to thank you very much again, and I hope that this was a very interesting debate for you, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.